Hi y'all, Leila with mskisskreations. Welcome back to my channel. Today's tumbler tutorial, I'm going to show you how I created this winter snowflake tumbler. Like always, all of my materials will be listed in my description below, including some direct links and coupon codes. If you want to purchase this tumbler or any other tumbler, check out my website, mskisskreations.com, and don't forget to follow me on all of my socials, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get started with this tutorial. Today I'm using a 20-ounce skinny from Maker Flow Crafts. I first sand my tumbler down with a 80 grit sanding block. If you don't have an 80 grit, I use sometimes 80 to 180 grit, whatever I have on hand. And then I wipe my tumblers down with a 91% alcohol. The alcohol dries almost immediately, and then we'll add the designs to the tumbler. The glitter that I'm using today is of course from Glitter Heart Co. I do have a 10% off code MISSKISS. If you do want to try these colors or any other colors, please use my code to help support not only their small business, but my small business. So instead of using one color, I of course had to mix all three of the colors into a Dixie cup and make my own color. But I was searching for like a night sky bluish color, and I just mixed them like 3 equal parts. So that's the color that turned out. I really like this deep blue sky for like a lot of tumblers, not just Christmas. But the way that I'm adding these colors to the tumbler is I'm using my Adhesive Apothecary Dress Blues color. Again, I do have a 10% off code MISSKISS. This paint is not only a paint, but it's a primer and adhesive. If y'all watched my previous video, y'all saw how much or heard how much I bragged about this. It's only because I'm so new to this product, and every time when I find an amazing product, I always reach out to the business owner and I try to become an affiliate so I can really show it off and just tell y'all like, guys, go get this. And I get some perks from it, and that's how I'm able to do all these little giveaways throughout the year. So just keep that in mind. The more you use my coupon code, the more I'm able to collect over the year and give away items. Anyways, so again, I'm going to paint all of this colors on the tumbler, and then I'm going to add all of the glitter on the tumbler. It's easy as that. This paint does dry very quickly because it is a glue, but you only need 1 coat. So you don't need to put 2 coats on there. You need that 1 coat, add it on there. Make sure you wash your brush like right when you're finished, because your brush will become crusty, rusty, and you'll have to throw it away. So clean your brush. I always just use my Dawn soap. Clean your brush immediately after these colors. So I learned that the hard way. Once you're finished adding these to the tumbler, you're going to seal this glitter. I always use my Krylon crystal clear acrylic coating, but I think I was actually out of that, so I use my Krylon. You'll see what I use, but it's the same stuff. I'll have them both linked in my description. They both do well with sealing the glitters, but the reason why I'm sealing the glitters is so when I apply that epoxy to the tumbler, I have an even coat of epoxy. The Adhesive Apothecary also has a sealer too, I just haven't tried it. But if you don't seal your glitter with something, whenever you add your epoxy to the tumbler, the glitters are going to move around and it's going to be like a little bumpy and lumpy, and you're not going to have a smooth, clean, like epoxy, even layer epoxy, if that makes sense. So make sure to seal your glitter. I seal my glitter, I spray it once since it's only 1 color glitter. I let that tumbler sit for about 25 minutes after I seal my glitter, and then I move on to epoxy in the tumbler. So yeah, I use my Krylon Clear Gaze. Again, I'll have this posted in my description below, and I'll have the direct link for y'all. So I spray that outside, let that sit for 25 minutes, and then we'll go and epoxy the tumbler. This is my first coat of epoxy. I am using 40 mLs of epoxy for this tumbler, so 20 mLs part A and 20 mLs part B. I am using my Flynn Sisters Supply Shop epoxy. Again, I do have a coupon code MISSKISS to try them as well. They also do have fast set, and I did this tumbler like 3 weeks ago, and I don't remember if this is the fast set or not, but if you do have the fast set on hand or a fast set epoxy and you're trying to just work through the holidays, then I strongly recommend a fast set. So once I was finished applying this coat of epoxy to the tumbler, I came back and I checked on it about 8 hours, 10 hours, and it wasn't as smooth as I wanted it to be. So the glitter was still peeking up. So I basically didn't add enough epoxy, which is okay. So I decided to put another coat of epoxy on this. So I added my 40 mLs total of epoxy for my first coat. I let that dry or cure for, 8 hours or so. And then I went back and I added another 20 mLs of epoxy. I wanted a very smooth surface. I didn't want any of that glitter peeking through because we are going to spray paint this, add some decals to it. So I wanted the surface to be as smooth as possible. So however much epoxy it takes for you to put on this tumbler to be smooth, do that. So between these two coats, I actually did not sand these tumblers, okay? So I didn't want to create any craters. If you sand the tumblers with the glitter peeking through that epoxy, you're going to create craters or holes in the tumbler, and I wanted to avoid that. So I did not sand this tumbler between these two coats of epoxy. I waited until after this coat was cured until I sand the tumbler. After this final coat that you see here, I waited at least 24 hours to make sure my epoxy was completely cured before going on to the next step. You want to make sure your epoxy is cured because you're going to add some decals to this. So if you remove the decals while your epoxy is not cured, you're going to risk removing that uncured epoxy. So just keep that in mind. This is only applied to the regular epoxy. If you are using the fast set epoxy, it does not take 24 hours. It takes like 5 to 6 hours. Just read your epoxy's label to get the proper curing times. So I'll see y'all whenever this epoxy is completely cured. Once my epoxy is cured, I'm going in with my X-Acto knife and I'm cleaning up the rim of the tumbler. I do this after every epoxy application. I just do this just to make sure that my final cleanup process is just a little easier. And then I take my 180 grit sanding block and I sand around my tumbler, but I first sand the rim. I want to make sure that I'm sanding away a little bit of stainless steel at the top, exposing the tiniest bit of stainless steel so whenever I add my final coat of epoxy, it gets a nice seal. I then sand my tumbler down with a 180 grit sanding block. Then I needed a little bit more, so then I use a 100 grit sanding block, and then I use a 220 grit. There were just some stubborn places around my tumbler that I needed to really sand and really grind away, so that's why I use the 100 grit sanding block, and I'm not worried about sanding away the glitter because I do have the 2 coats of epoxy on here. Once I was finished sanding, I wiped my tumbler down with 91% alcohol again. I added my tumbler to my tumbler arm, and then we'll move on to adding the decals to the tumbler. So as far as the decals that I'm adding to the tumbler, I am using only one type of snowflake. I try to find the most basic snowflake without all this extra weeding on my Cricut design space. I took the snowflake and I applied the offset method. So I just offset the snowflake. I chose both the offset and the original snowflake, and I selected slice. That way it gave me an outline of my snowflake and not just a silhouette. So what I'm doing here is I am weeding my snowflakes. If you want, you can add all different types of snowflakes, however you want to make your tumbler. I know it's going to turn out beautiful. And the offset that I used on one tumbler, my offset was a 0.040, and my other offset was a 0.025. So I made my offset line a little smaller for the second one, the one that I add the more glitter to, than the first one, and I'll explain that more and I'll show y'all the difference at the end. But it's easy as that. If you have the Cricut design space, you have access to all these images. If you don't have Cricut design space, or if you use another cutting machine or program, you can always find a snowflake outline on Google or wherever you get your images, and then as long as you have that outline cut out. So I first add that silhouette onto the tumblers, and you'll see how I do that once I finish the weeding process. So here's what I mean by using the center or the silhouette part of my design. So you see how I'm removing the middle or the silhouette part of my snowflake, and I'm leaving that offset on the paper because I'm going to use that at the end. So right now I'm basically just laying templates down on my tumbler. and this is going to be here temporarily, so I am using my 631 or my temporary vinyl. If you do have your permanent vinyl on hand and you want to use it, you can use that, no big deal. Just remember that the permanent vinyl is a little bit more sticky than the temporary vinyl, so it's going to be just a little bit trickier taking it off of the tumbler whenever you have to remove these templates, but you can always use your permanent vinyl. These snowflakes, I made 3 different sizes. The small size is 1 inch by 1 inch, the medium size is 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch, and the larger size is 2 inch by 2 inch. A little tip, if you notice I'm touching the tumbler a lot, don't lotion your hands before you do this step. If you lotion your hands, you have a lot of oils on your hands that's going to go to the tumbler, and you're not going to have the chance to take the oils off because you're spray painting, you're doing stuff like that, and then once you apply your epoxy, it might repel. So just a little tip that I may or may have not learned from experience, make sure your hands are nice, clean, dry, with no like oils or lotions on them. I am leaving a blank space in the center of my tumbler. That's why I keep like taking my finger up and down, because I am adding the decal that says Hello Winter at the end. You can add a name to this, you can add anything, but I wanted to add just a little cute saying just to kind of tie the tumbler together. So that's why I'm adding that space. I'm leaving that space open so I can add something there later. The next step of this tumbler is spray painting the tumbler, so I do tape off the inside of this tumbler with my painter's tape before I take this outside to spray paint my tumbler. I use the thickest painter's tape just to make sure that I'm getting the most furthest into the tumbler, and then we'll take our tumbler outside to spray paint the tumbler. So for the spray paint method, I am using the power wash method. So you need some spray paint, some power wash Dawn dish soap, some water, and a container. I am using white, it does not matter the finish, and I'm also using Aqua by RustOleum. So this is very easy. If you guys have seen this before, it's really fun, and I love this method to do my tumblers. All I do is I take my soap and I spray it, as you will see soon. There you are. So I spray my tumbler randomly. I try not to overthink this part because I want to overthink it so badly, but then I don't. And then I spray it with white spray paint, and then I go in with the blue spray paint. It's really that easy. Once I finish spraying it, I just take my water and I just dump it all over the tumbler, and I get this pretty cool design. You could see that you need to really trust the process with this. I take my tumbler back inside and I pat dry my tumbler. I'm not rubbing on my tumbler. I don't want to take away that really cool design. I just want to make sure that it is dry. I did do 2 tumblers, so I will show you both of the tumblers. I sprayed like more spray paint on one tumbler, and this one I sprayed more power wash. So the other tumbler that I have, I sprayed more spray paint. So you will be able to see the difference of if you want to spray more power wash, then you want your tumbler to look like this that you see. If you want to spray more spray paint, then you'll want your tumbler to look like the other tumbler that I will show y'all. All you do next is, I don't let this dry or anything because I have zero patience and I have no time on my hands. So I go right in and I remove these decals with my hands, with my weeding tools, and with my backwards tweezers. Make sure you are doing this very carefully and you are taking your time. You don't want to risk peeling up this decal and then having your weeding tool scrape your design, and then you have a nice line right through your spray paint and it just looks weird. So I will clean up this tumbler. I'm going to remove all the decals, and when I'm finished with that, we'll move on with the next step. Once I was finished removing all the decals from my tumbler, I then move on to applying a coat of epoxy to this tumbler. By the time I added my epoxy to this tumbler, my spray paint was completely dried. I am using my fast cure epoxy from Flynn's Sister Supply Shop, and I'm adding some Wishful mica powder and Diamonds glitter into my already mixed epoxy. So I am adding just a little bit of mica powder and then some diamonds, my favorite color from Glitter Heart Co. And I am just adding this to my already mixed epoxy, and then I'm going to apply it over the tumbler. So this tumbler, the difference between, or one of the differences between this tumbler and the other tumbler is that This one I added that diamonds glitter, and the other tumbler I just added the Wishful mica powder. So this one is more glitterly, and the other one is more shimmery. So I personally like this one better because, you know, the more glitter, the cuter, right? But the other one is just as cute. It just doesn't have that like pop of glitter throughout the tumbler, and you'll see that once I tell you all these little things, you're going to notice the difference between the two. So I let this tumbler cure for about 3 to 4 hours or so, and then I'll move on to the next step with adding the decals to the tumbler. Once my tumbler was cured, or my epoxy was cured, I went in with my X-Acto knife and I cleaned up the rim of my tumbler, and then I sanded my tumbler down with a 180 grit sanding block. Once I finished sanding my tumbler, I wiped my tumbler down with my 91% alcohol, and then we'll move on with applying the decals to the tumbler. So for the decals, I'm adding that offset that I originally had from the beginning when I used my template. You can always use different color offset pieces, but I wanted just to use the white because I really like the dark blue, the light blue, and the white together. But if you want, you can always cut another set of like holographic, white, silver, light blue, whatever you guys want to do. I'm like I said, it's going to be beautiful. And I also wanted to keep some of those snowflakes like exposed, I guess I should say. I didn't want to place an offset on all the snowflakes. So you see that I'm going around and I'm placing the snowflakes on top of like where I peeled the snowflakes from. And before I add the snowflakes to the areas, it looks like a weird little blob. Even if it looks like a weird blob like that one, once you add that snowflake, no one's gonna notice. So that's the best part about it. If you happen to get spray paint underneath your snowflake and it's like, what is that blob? Once you add that snowflake over that little area like that doesn't look like a snowflake to me. So then I add my offset to it. But the ones that actually look like a defined snowflake, I kept alone. Like I didn't add any decals over it because I wanted some that was just not decaled, I guess. Again, you guys make y'all's tumbler whatever way you guys want to make it. I thought this turned out cute in leaving some non-decaled snowflakes around the tumbler, and I really liked how it turned out. So like I told y'all, I left that area blank so I can add my Hello Winter. If you guys want to do an offset on this, then you can, but I don't know what it is about me liking the like very thin fonts that like you can barely read unless you really focus. I don't know, I just think that's a really cute look. It's complicated but cute, like us, right? So I added my quote to the tumbler, and then now I'm adding my decals to the bottom. Guys, I just started doing this like a year ago. I guess that's not like just started doing it now, but anyways, add your decals to the bottom, add your signatures to your work. Every brand does it, so you need to do it as well. So once I add the decals and everything, I'm placing my quick coats from CC DIY on this tumbler. I add this to every single tumbler that I add decals to. I add this to my decals, and I also add it to the bottom where I added my label. This allows that vinyl to really stick to the tumbler, so you don't have to worry about that vinyl lifting whenever you apply your coats of epoxy to the tumbler. Side note, is it just me, or like as I'm making these videos I always get more excited throughout the video. Like you can hear the tone of my voice, like how excited I am, because like I know these tumblers turn out cute, but when I see the process, I get super excited, and I don't know if I wake up or if my coffee's kicking in, because I am sipping some coffee while I make this, so maybe it's just a little bit of both. But do you guys notice that too, or is it just me and I'm just hyped on coffee right now? Okay, back to the plot. So once I apply this quick coats, I let this dry for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then I add my coats of epoxy. So I do add 2 coats of epoxy to this. I'm adding 2 thin layers. So I'm going to add 2 12 mLs of epoxy. So again, that's super thin. I'd rather add super thin layers than very thick layers, because if you add those thinner layers, then the risk of your tumbler being all bumpy and lumpy is less likely than if you add one thick layer. So you do see a lot more epoxy in my tumbler or in my cup because I am doing other projects. So just add that epoxy to the tumbler. My final coat of my epoxies is never my fast set or my quick cure epoxy, fast cure epoxy. It's always the regular curing epoxy because I want it to be nice and shiny and pretty. And you can see this tumbler, you can see the glitter once I apply this to the tumbler. This is so exciting. I want to keep this tumbler, but looking at my tumbler supply, I'm probably not the best. So these tumblers, they will be posted on my website, mskisskreations, and I also have more winter tumblers you guys can choose from. Once I add my 2 final coats of epoxy, I go in again with my X-Acto knife, cleaning up the rim, and then I clean up the inside as well. So I clean up the inside with some, what is it called? Acetone. And then I wipe it out with some dish soap again, some power wash. It always comes through. So make sure you're cleaning this out very well if you're going to clean up the inside with acetone. Once I finish cleaning up the inside, let me show y'all the 2 tumblers. They're so cute. And here are the final tumblers. So like I mentioned before, the one on the left, I added that diamonds glitter to the top. You can see how sparkly and glitterly it is. And the one on the right, it's all mature and shimmery. And the one on the left, I added more power wash. And the one on the right, I added less power wash and more spray paint whenever I was doing the power wash method. So if you notice the one on the left, it has more of that glitter exposed on the bottom. And the one on the right, it has more of the spray paint. Do whichever one you like best. I like them both, but y'all know I like the left the best. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more Tumbler and craft videos. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Please guys, I need some love on those socials too. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.